Welcome back to Recovery Channel. I'm Brian Ariel, Treatment Director for the Outpatient Recovery Program at Applied Care Services. And today I'm joined by Shantae. Shantae, what do you do here?
Well, I do a lot. I'm one of the treatment directors. I also do in-home therapy and diagnostic assessments.
Nice, very nice. So I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. I hope you're okay with that.
Okay.
So the first question is, what has been your experiencing in addressing co-occurring disorders as a part of ARMS?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting, I guess. It's my experience is, working with obviously people in the home, right? But really helping people find themselves outside of use. So it's creating this life outside of that, and who I used to hang out with or the places that I would go. And so when you're doing ARMS with these folks in the home, you're really focusing on helping them build the best version of themselves and how they view it, right? So not what we think, but what it is that they would like to be.
So kind of helping them realize who they can really be.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find like meeting them in the home is really good because you can see their environment and see kind of their stressors and things like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Oftentimes you'll go in and, you get a feel for the community, you get a feel for the apartment building, and you're able to see their challenges, right? Like, if you're coming out of recovery and you're going back into this environment where people are using on the doorstep, or there's, unfortunately people selling at the end of the corner, that's really hard for someone who just came out of recovery and is trying to walk on this more straight and narrow path, if you will.
Oh yeah. It's tough, it's really tough.
Yeah.
So how have you seen substance use affect mental health? That's a big one.
That's a loaded question.
Like, holy cow, they kind of go back and forth, but
Yes.
like, how have you seen in the clients that you work with, have you seen substance use really affect their mental health? And maybe even vice versa.
I was just gonna say that I think it's, it's both, right? So oftentimes people, and it depends on the disorder, I feel like, right? So specifically with someone who maybe struggles with internal stimuli, will use so that they can decrease the voices,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But then unfortunately when they use, that's not what happens, right? It's the total opposite. The voices either increase, they become angry. So it's both. Even with some of my folks who are struggling with bipolar, if they want a mood stabilizer, sometimes they think, okay, well, I'll just smoke marijuana and I'll be chill, right? And that often is not the case. Sometimes psychosis develops out of that, and I find that some of my folks end up in the hospital, unfortunately.
That is unfortunate, but there is definitely cues between substance use and mental health, and
Yes.
not necessarily, we might think, if I get high or if I can avoid this, if I can manage it on my own, then it'll be better. But often than not, I've experienced the same thing where people really spin out of control. They become even more symptomatic.
Yep.
And or hurt themselves or hurt others, and like you said, end up in the hospital or even jail.
I was just gonna say
they end up
that.
in jail, and it's really because of their symptom. It's not because they're a bad person or they're evil or they have a
Yep.
malicious intent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really hard.
And sometimes, people who maybe struggle with like isolation, right? Like using is a commodity. Like, oh, okay, I'll go down to the bus stop and I'll, see other people then. So if I'm drinking,
Oh yeah.
then I have buddies now who will come and drink with me, right? So if we look at it kind of all of these symptoms and we really just tear it apart little by little, we'll see how that substance use really does impact mental health, and then vice versa, I feel like.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What skills have you taught clients that have had co-occurring disorders specifically? Like so if I was to say, what's your top 2 skills to help someone deal with triggers and cravings? And when we talk about recovery, we'll include mental health in there. So it's just not substance abuse.
Right.
But like in recovery in general, what skills are top 2 skills that you teach that really seem to help people?
mindfulness is the first one.
Okay.
You know, and obviously mindfulness is a broad, you know, skill, right?
That's
So,
pretty big.
yes.
We go a long way.
Exactly.
Mindfulness.
But I tend to teach a lot of the mindfulness skills, such as, you know, the guided meditations, you know, walking, and learning, you know, the deep breathing. Because oftentimes when it comes down to people just not knowing how to cope, that's really
Right.
what it is.
Yeah.
Like, let me go and use, because I don't know what's going on with my body right now. So that's always my go-to. We start with mindfulness, and I start wherever that person is at. So it's either teaching breathing, distractions is another one that I really love, and I really encourage people to tap into their strengths. So I'm very heavy on positive psychology interventions.
I know you are. Like,
So
more positive we can be, the better we
yes,
are.
you know, more positive and really teaching people about gratitude, because oftentimes they feel they burn so many bridges, right? And how do you come back from that, right?
It's true.
But showing gratitude and showing, writing a letter to someone who maybe was there for you can really start to change those feelings on the inside and make you look at yourself a little bit different. So those are my top two. That
I think
usually go with.
there was more than two in there,
Yeah,
but you know,
definitely.
that's cool. I like it when we're passionate about the skills we teach and then we know that it'll help somebody.
Yes.
It kind of helps us really dig in and think like, not be so jaded and go, this person is just gonna, hopeless cause. No one's hopeless.
No one's hopeless, and everyone has strengths. You just have to be willing to work with that person and find them.
Yeah.
Because they might not even know, I don't have any strengths, I'm not good at anything.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know.
I don't know.
What can you do well? Nothing. I don't know. Come on.
Yeah.
Really? Let's think about this a little bit.
Yeah.
So, okay, so, your opinion. Real quick. So your opinion.
Okay.
What other resources do you think would help in treatment and helping people with their overall recovery? And I mean like broad overall recovery. So what things, practical things, can we give people or help them with that overall recovery?
That is a really good question. And I feel like part of it is really helping people adapt back into an environment that they have no control over, right? So if you're going back home and you can't afford to move, and that's understandable because no one can just pick up and move, really helping that person adapt to going back home. What can we do? Put these plans in place, right? How can we stay busy? Just those little things, like really helping that person, whether that in treatment, right? So even if it's inpatient or outpatient treatment, giving that person tasks, right? So you're gonna go home, what are you going to do when you get home? Let's make a schedule. So in that way, if you start to veer off your schedule, you'll start to catch the possible relapse a lot faster. So just trying to be a little bit more proactive, I think is the key. And I think everyone's different, right? Like what might work for one person might not work for the next, but I really feel like that environment piece, that's the key. Helping someone survive in their environment if they cannot move.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. So I'm gonna put a bonus question in here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So when we're talking about treatment and we're doing outpatient substance use treatment here, and what I just heard you say is like, what if we were to introduce an arms worker while they're here in treatment to help them guide through that? Do you think that would be a good thing? Because I know some places have transition to community living, but like actually bringing in an arms worker while they're doing these things to kind of help reinforce what we're doing in treatment to help build that better bridge into coping with their huge environment.
I agree. Because after treatment, they can go home, and let's just say like their arms worker meets with them 2 or 3 days out the week, right? They could really work with that person on getting out into the community. And what happens if someone is using, okay? What are you gonna do? Well, if you have your arms worker in the moment skills, which is my favorite, So that arms worker could really work with that person and see their struggles, right?
Mhm.
Because like you said, outpatient treatment, we're just here in the building. We don't really know what's going on at
Right,
home.
yeah.
But that arms worker could really go do in the moment skills with that person, and help them develop what they need to be successful moving forward.
Yeah, on a skills basis.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. Thank you for coming by and allowing me to ambush you with some questions.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And again, I'm Brian Ariel with the Outpatient Recovery Program at Applied Care Services. Be well and be safe.